It's the new Rodecaster Pro 2. There's some really cool things about it and some things that are really driving me nuts.
The School of Podcasting with Dave Jackson.
Hey, I'm Dave Jackson from the School of Podcasting.com, where I help you plan, launch, and grow your podcast. Before we get into the Rodecaster today, I want to remind you to subscribe, do the bell, do the whole 9 yards. And I was going to do a thing where we show a bunch of shots of the Rodecaster and me pushing buttons. Do we really need that? So here's the thing. The first thing is they made updating this thing so easy. I might throw a couple screenshots up here. So easy. The Rodecaster I was super easy, and they've taken that to a whole new level. The Rodecaster now connects via Wi-Fi or Ethernet, and you basically click a button that says information, and you go check for updates, and it goes, yeah, there's an update. Want it? And you go, yeah, and that's it. It's really, really cool. The preamps. Now, here's the thing about preamps that I think we all need to remember. Most people are listening through these. So when the difference between hisses versus, yeah. Now, is there a difference? Yeah. But it's literally, yeah. So that's the thing. And I was running I compared it to the Rodecaster I using this microphone, the Shure SM7B. And you literally, at first I sat in here in my office and I was like, oh, I hear a difference. And then I listened to that recording while walking around using these. Yeah. Then I listened to it in the car. Yeah. Please remember that most podcasts are heard through earbuds, car speakers, Bluetooth speakers. So that difference of hiss of, yeah, is really not going to make that much of a difference. But they are better. I will give them that. But it's kind of like, hey, we took chocolate frosting and put more on it. I'm like, okay, sure. We always want more frosting. One of my favorite features is you can go in and say, hey, when because I have monitors right here. I have studio monitors pointing at my microphone. And it used to be if I turned up the microphone, it would go, because I would get feedback because I'm pointing speakers right at a microphone. Shocking, I know. Well, now I can go in and say, look, when I turn up any mic fader, turn off the monitors. And I know that sounds like, well, okay. No, I'm here to tell you it's one of those little features that means a lot. If you are a musician, you're going to like it because you now have combo jack. So that means it's XLR and quarter inch. So if you want to plug your microphone in, line in, all that kind of stuff, it's there. Now, if you are a fan of the Rodecaster Pro 1 that had locking XLR, so you never had to worry about the cable coming out, oopsie. Yeah, so there's that. Smart pads used to be what we used to just call the jingle buttons, right? And the fun thing about this is they do more than, because, we need more of this. Right? Yeah. So it does more than play stupid sound effects. And you can actually do things that you can have it do. Oh, well, we have to do these. I mean, what am I doing? You have to be able to do this.
And now there's that. And
hey, everybody, it's Christmas. Oh, my God, and everybody.
Get on the dance floor. It's time to be a robot. Shake your booty. Yeah, that's really useful. Oh, wait, how do
I turn this off? There we go. So you'll be doing that for about 15 minutes.
Wait, there's another robot.
Yeah, okay. So you got all that stuff. And if you're into MIDI, I'm not talking at all about MIDI. I know there's a whole world of stuff waiting for me to do, but what you could do is basically say, look, when I move this slider, do this in Hindenburg. When I turn this knob, adjust the pan in, something like that. So I'm not doing any MIDI stuff, but they do more than just play sounds. They do have one feature called ducking that it's supposed to basically bring down whatever you're talking over. And I would love the ability to say, no, duck it this much. It's just preset and it's okay. It's kind of meh. The biggest thing, the hallelujah moment, with the Rodecaster I, you got 9 files. I believe it was 9 when you transferred your file off the Rodecaster I. So let's say I recorded just me. Then we get 8 additional files of nothing. And I actually compared, I recorded 9 files on the Rodecaster II and compared it to moving 9 files off the Rodecaster I, and it was actually a little slower. Just barely. So I don't think that's where, because they're like, it's lightning fast. It's lightning fast because finally you get to only have the tracks that you recorded. So if I say, hey, I want a track of me, a track of my sounds, and maybe a USB where I had a guest on Squadcast or something like that, I'm going to get 3 files plus a mix down of all of those. And so in reality, that went from taking about 25 minutes to download my show to about 7. So yeah, that was one I was like, oh, now we're talking. Because this thing is $700. Yeah, so keep that in mind. The other thing, speaking of moving files from one place to another, you used to have Polywave files. Now, if you've never worked in Polywave, boy, are you lucky. It's not the end of the world, but basically you end up with this giant file, one file where they kind of smushed all your files together into this one. And that was one of the reasons why I think it took so long to get the file off the old system, is because as you're moving it from one device to the other, you're also unsmushing it. And so if you're like, ugh, Polywave, yeah, those are gone. Thank God. Thank you, Rode. Thank you for that. The other one is the back of this thing has, you know how if you look in the back of your computer monitor, you got the 4 holes and there's like a rectangle thing, kind of like this, right? You can put the Rodecaster II on one of these. I bought this at B&H. Now, for the record, this is for a light stand. There are no threads in that. So if you're like, oh, I'm just going to put this on a mic stand, although there is a hole in the back of the Rodecaster II for a mic stand. So if you're like, I kind of like it, it is smaller than the Rodecaster I, but it still takes up a chunk of my desk. Well, you could do something, and I'm going to play with this later, from the Elgato. It's kind of the lowrider mic stand, this thing. So this goes on your desk. And I kind of liked it, but, you know, I have things on my desk like a keyboard. So this works for Joe Rogan, who just has a table just for recording. But I could basically put this on my desk, screw this into the back of the Rodecaster, and then just kind of move it off my desk when I don't want it, move it back or whatever. So there is that ability. And to me, that feature really shows that Rode is listening to the users. Now, this is not a big one, but again, in the past, you had an electrical cable that went into it, that powered it, and you would actually screw it in. So again, you never had to worry about the power going out. You didn't have to worry about the mic cables coming out. Well, they've replaced that now with a USB-C cable, which is great because on the Rodecaster I, you had to buy a special power adapter to get that to work. That's just built in. Just make sure nobody trips on the cord. That's it. But it does make it easy to plug into a wall, or if you have some sort of power brick, you can use it on batteries. The other one that I kind of go, did we need this? Okay. Because the Rodecaster I, you kind of had everything, like the Bluetooth was channel 6 and the phone was channel 7. They've now made it much more flexible to say, look, take microphone input 1, put it on channel 1. Then I want the USB one to be channel 2. And I want it to be green and pink and blue and yellow. Okay. And then you can also make the headphone amplifiers, they will basically color code those as well. And speaking of that, I think one of the reasons why some people said there was hiss in the Rodecaster I, it wasn't because what was being recorded, it was because the headphone amplifiers were not that great. And so they've redone those. So you can now really, if you're deaf like me, you can blast your headphones into like, wow, okay. So that's another bonus. This is not a new feature, but everybody keeps saying it's a new feature, and I'm here to tell you it's not, but it is a cool feature, and that is if you're a person that does multiple shows. Like I have some shows where it's just me, and then I do other shows where it's co-hosts and things like that. You can make settings for that show and then save it, and then make other settings for another show and basically swap them like that. That was on the Rodecaster I. It was in the software. Same thing. People are like going, oh, look, you can press down 2 buttons and have a talk channel. That, again, was on the Rodecaster I as well. So let's get into what I don't like. And these are the biggest one, hands down, is you have 2 USB-C input outputs. So here's my first one, and I have 2 fingers up, and here's my other one, which I have 1. So you have USB 1, which has mix minus built in. That's called USB 1 chat. And then you have USB 1 main, which is everything, which I'm assuming you could do to map your channels to like Hindenburg or whatever DAW you're using. Over here, you have USB 2. USB 2 has a built-in mix minus on-off button. Yay! We'll talk about that in a second. And so what I hate about this, now I'm using a Windows machine. It's not super old, but it's not super new. And I am running into things where it just kind of resets itself. Like I'll say for the most of the stuff, all the Zooms and Squadcast and stuff, I'm just like, let's use USB 1 chat. So I have that built-in mix minus. And I will do something and come back and all of a sudden it's using USB 1 main, which is the one where everything goes out. Like right now I was playing with something and I'm like, why is my YouTube coming through USB main? That's a little odd. And the big one, now this is where I might be different, is I need that mix minus. And if you're not familiar with mix minus, it means like when I have a guest, they come in and they are mixed with my sounds along with, you know, any kind of fun sound or anything that's going on. All the mix minus, everybody can hear everybody, but the minus part is the part they hear is all the stuff going on minus their audio. And I need the ability to turn that on and off. Number one, when I do consulting with podcast clients, and they're like, Dave, how do I do this on Audacity? I can go, oh, hold on a second. By the way, if you talk right now, you're going to hear an echo. So just watch. And I will go into I used to go into the Rodecaster I, turn off mix minus, go into Audacity, social stuff, so they can hear what's going on my computer. I need that. And then when it was done, I would go back in, couple clicks, mix minus is back on. Now there's no echo. And when I first saw it in USB 2, right, the one over here, right, we had mix minus built in, we had one to tie into our DAW, and then we had this USB 2, and you're like, why do I even need two outputs? This is the one for gamers, and this is one of the things that's kind of like, and I get it. You got a box, you got to make as much money from that box as you can. The 1/4-inch inputs is for musicians, I'm pretty sure on that one, and the second output is for gamers. And you know what the old saying is, when you try to be everything to everyone, yeah. So I'm the guy that's like, I don't get this. But when I saw the mix minus on off button, I took my computer, connection and plugged it in there. And I was like, this is the best. I can just now say, hey, when I'm on Squadcast, I'll do this, or if I'm on Zoom, awesome. And then I connected, they have this cool feature. It's a software where you can do a lot of what you do on the Rodecaster, you can do in this software. So you can load all your files and things like that. It's really great. And I connected it. And because I was in USB 2, the software was like, huh? Where's the Rodecaster? And I was like, and so I realized it's a first world problem, but when I have to reach behind it and move my hand this much and plug it into USB 1 so the software can hear it or connect to it. And then when I'm done, oh my God, unplug it and plug it back in. Oh my God, are you kidding me? What is it? The 1800s? I realize it's a first world problem, but these are the things, all the things I talk about here are little things that are like, paper cut. So there's that. The smart pads have this one feature called fade. It looks really cool. You go in and you say, how long do you want your fade to be when you click maybe music? How long do you want it to take to fade out? So I use this, and it's me and a co-host. I hit my music, hit the fade button, and hit go, and sure enough, the music fades in. Really cool. I do my thing, and then I hit the button, the effects button again to fade it out. And all of a sudden, I'm still talking because in that feature, it says, ignore the host. In other words, don't fade out the host. Well, I'm the host. And my co-host is like, and I'm like, I can't hear anybody. And so what it's done is the only sound that now works is me. And so I had to realize I had to go in and hit that effects button one more time. So it's one time to fade in, one more time to fade out, and one more time to turn it off because it fades out everything on your computer. If you're going to use that feature, play with it because it's an easy thing to trip over. The other thing that's just, it is what it is. They rebuilt this thing from the ground up. It's got brand new guts. So what does that mean? It used to be you would hit the on off button and you'd be ready to go in about 3 seconds. Now you're looking closer, somewhere between 10 and 20. Not a big deal, but if you turn it on and off a lot, that's going to drive you nuts. Here's the other one. Do not buy the $9 cable from Amazon that is a USB-C to lightning bolt. So here's the Rode RC19. So we got, USB-C to lightning. And it says on their website that you cannot do standard phone calls, even if you're using the Rode RC19 cable. And I was like, really? And I went to test it out, And sure enough, you can't. And that's where I'm like, well, that sucks, because on the Rodecaster I, I had a TRRS cable. I could plug it right into my phone, and I could do whatever I wanted to do on the phone. So if I wanted to do Twitter Spaces, if I wanted to do Clubhouse, if my mom called me in the middle of the show, which would be kind of weird because she's dead, but nonetheless, I could do anything on my phone. Now, if I want the phone to really be like a phone, I've got to use Bluetooth. Now, from what I understand, their Bluetooth is now the Super Jumbo Deluxe version of Bluetooth, and I've had to use it because I didn't have a choice. Yeah, it works okay. Now, the thing I hate about that, again, going back to the little things, is it used to be when I was done with my show, I'd unplug my phone and I was done. Now, and again, they make it easy. I go into that channel and I have to remember to turn off the Bluetooth, because otherwise, all of a sudden I'm walking outside and I'm getting ready to grill up some chicken and my phone connects to the Rodecaster. I'm like, again, first world problem. I get it. But I guess, because first of all, you have to buy $29 for the cable. And I guess all I can do is play music or sound effects. I guess if I wanted to use something like Backpack Studio and I wanted more jingles. But in terms of phone stuff, you're not going to get it from the cable. So that was one where, as much as I love the fact that you only got the files you recorded, the fact that we lost the TRRS cable, I was like, ew. Because meanwhile, the Focusrite Vocaster has that feature and Bluetooth. Now, it's not a recorder, and let's not take a tangent, but let's get there. Now, the other thing about the RSS, when I first plugged this cable in, and I plugged it in, the first night it worked great. I was like, cool, and I played some podcasts. I wasn't trying to do phone calls. Second day, I'm sitting here with my co-host. I plugged my phone in, and the Rodecaster rebooted. And that kind of stuff is not happening a lot, but there are times when you're like, I didn't switch sound things. So let's remember, this is new, and new stuff has bugs. So that was a weird one. And then once it rebooted and I hit play, it sounded like this. Yeah. So I'm not using that. Now, how did I fix that? Now, I was getting ready to go live, so I didn't do this, but I rebooted. I turned off, counted to 10, turned it back on, and the same cable, wasn't like I had to jiggle the cable, same exact thing, and the sound problem was away. But that's when I learned that you can't make a phone call. So, and I've seen where you're going to be able to go, hey, take channel 1 and send it to output 1. Take channel 2, that can go to channel 1. But this channel 3, so it's going to get really, really flexible. But realize with flexibility comes a learning curve. And so that's fine. They're getting this super flexibility for the gamers, but just realize that it's going to take a little second maybe to understand as this gets more and more powerful. Another feature that you can trip over, and I'm kind of like, was somebody trying to set the mood here or what? But I can go in and say, look, after X amount of minutes, dim the lights on the Rodecaster. Okay, not quite sure why, but okay. But I did this and I was like, okay. And so when you mute a channel, you get a little red kind of shading on the screen for that channel. And then like the Rodecaster I, you have this bright red light showing that it's muted. Well, now you've said, go ahead and mute the lights, turn them down a bit. But the problem is I muted a channel, and then because I didn't have that bright red light in my face anymore, there was a few minutes going, why am I not hearing anything? And I'm moving sliders up and down, and finally I was like, oh, wait, it was muted. And so I had muted the mute button, basically. So not a bug, operator error, but that's something pretty easy to trip over. I mentioned how this the second input / output on this. So if I'm plugging the Rodecaster into, in my case, Hindenburg, when you go to assign the channels, there's going to be 16 of them. And the thing I wish, I go, what? Because my first channel, call me crazy, I would think would be, channel number 1. And it's not, because the first 2 channels are your stereo out. So whatever channel you're looking at, which is, so you're like, well, here's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that's channel 5 is now channel 7. So you just have to add 2 to whatever you're doing when you're trying to tie this into your software. Not the end of the world, but again, probably one of the things I really need is, I'm in my 50s. My eyesight is not what it used to be. And in the past, when I hit I do a live show and I'm trying to talk up the music. So I'm hitting it and I'm like, hey, what's coming up next? And blah, blah, blah. And that whole 9 yards. And it was great because I knew when I got to 11 seconds, that was the perfect time to start sliding up the fader and saying, thanks so much for tuning in. My website, yada, yada, yada. And the music would end and I would end. It was like, wow, I look so cool. Now you have a circle. It's basically a pie. And as you start to, when you hit the button, instead of having a countdown timer, which used to show 2 minutes and 11 seconds, 10 seconds, 9 seconds, 8 seconds, and I could see that, I now have a pie. Now, this is just, again, a learning curve. I'm going to have to learn that when I have this much pie left, that's when you slide it up. But I'm like, can I just have numbers? Numbers were pretty easy to get. So those are the things that I like about the Rodecaster. It is $700. So before I get out of here, let's talk about some things. And the first one is, let's look at some of the competition. And this is the Zoom Podtrac P4, which also has 4 inputs, can also connect to the computer, so you could record a Zoom call. You can actually plug in a phone via a TRRS cable. And you can only have 4 inputs. So I could have 2 microphones, 1 computer, and 1 phone. So there's that. And you're going to get a stereo mix down. So you get your separate channels. If you need buttons, because you really, you can't live without. Right. You've got 4 of those. You've got headphones out. This is the Swiss Army knife of podcasting. That's the good news. It even runs on batteries. And if I said anything about it's not super cheap plastic, but I wouldn't want to drop this too many times. But it's also $500 cheaper. This is $220, so a little under $500. I recommend this all the time. Now, the other one is, I mentioned the Focusrite Vocaster. Vocaster I, Vocaster II. Vocaster II has Bluetooth and a TRRS cable. The kind of bad news about the Focusrite one, it's not a recorder. But if I'm just doing interviews and I'm recording into Squadcast, I can also record into Hindenburg, and I've got my backup now. The Focusrite is $300, and again, pretty cool unit. The Rodecaster is $700. So who is this for? It's not for the person who's doing the occasional interview. That, again, I would recommend this. That's my my most recommended unit, because you're paying for things like, all your sound effects, and, you need this stuff. You're not doing that. You're doing interviews. So you don't need all the live things. The other thing that the Zoom Podtrac P4 has zero processing on it. So as I sit here, my processing is on, and now my processing is off. And so I can always do this kind of stuff where I'm adding a little bass and a little treble and some compression and a noise gate. I can add that in post using Scheps Omnichannel. And so if you're a major live streamer and you want that audio to sound great on the live stream, that's where the Rodecaster comes into play, because everything else can be done on units much, much, much cheaper. I do love this unit. They are going to get you for $50 for the plastic cover. It's worth it. I've already almost spilled something on it because, again, it takes up a lot of room on your desk. So is it worth $700? And that is a question that nobody can answer, because for some people, $700 is, I got that in the couch cushions, and I have no idea why that person is almost Southern. Other people, like $700, I guess after a year, if I put back this, yeah. So it's really up to you. Just realize there are a couple things on this. I've heard people say, oh, I bet this will get rid of my plosive problem. No, plosives are because you have bad mic technique. You need a little help on that. And I've got a video on that as well. So keep that in mind. It's also not going to grow your audience unless your audio was absolutely horrendous. And unless you're using a Blue Yeti in another state, your audio probably isn't that bad. But keep that in mind, because I just see a lot of people, and I call this Casterbation. This is where the hard thing is to figure out what my audience really wants and do some research, get some honest feedback on that, and then create content and then promote it. Well, that takes time, takes effort, actually might take a little bit of like, if I'm getting honest feedback on that. So nobody wants to do that. So I'll just spend $700 and hope that it grows my audience, when it's not. It's the content. So I say it all the time. It's not the technology. This is a great piece of technology. Rode is doing a great job of communicating with their audience and saying, hey, we heard you. It's going to do this now. And as I mentioned at the very beginning of this, it's super easy to update. And I'm pretty sure within a month, the things I mentioned about the USB mix minus thing, I'm pretty sure that's going away. Some other things, I don't know if I'll get my numbers back on my countdown timer. I'm not sure, but I know they're listening and they're making changes and they make it really easy to update. Now, I do have a link if you're watching this on YouTube. If you click that link, I paid for this. I did not get this from Rode for free. I paid for it, but I do have an affiliate link, and I love Sweetwater. Sweetwater is a great place to buy your gear, number one, because it's the same price as Amazon, free shipping as well, without having to pay for Prime, and they add a year of warranty to the unit, and you get candy. You get candy in the box when they ship it to you, and if you need help, you can actually give them a call. So if you do plan on buying any of the units I talked about here, please use the link below. I'm Dave Jackson from the School of Podcasting.com, where I help you plan, launch, and grow your podcast. Use the coupon code YouTube when you sign up for a monthly or yearly plan. See you in the next video.